Picture this, the dense, shadowy forests of Pauri Gardwal in Uttarakhand. It's the kind of place where towering Himalayas hide secrets way older than memory itself. Welcome back to The Explainer, everyone. Today we're diving headfirst into a terrifying true folk story, pulled straight from this region's deeply mystical lore. We're looking at a mystery that completely blurs the line between a standard animal attack and, well, something entirely supernatural. So, lower the lights, settle in, and let's explore the chilling legend of Dantuka.
To really grasp the sheer panic this entity caused, we gotta start right at the inciting incident. Brother was taken. Those were the barely whispered words of a 15-year-old boy who had just stumbled back into his village one evening. He was literally drenched in blood, completely in shock, right before collapsing in front of the absolutely horrified villagers. He and his 19-year-old brother had just been out doing their normal daily chores, and out of nowhere, something completely incomprehensible had torn their lives apart in a matter of seconds.
Now, what makes this story so uniquely terrifying is the setting itself. This isn't just your average forest. Uttarakhand is a land practically dripping in mysticism. As our source points out, this specific area is actually home to the world's only temple dedicated to Rahu, where legend says his severed head is buried right under a stone. Plus, there are these open-air shrines to Mahakal Bhairavs scattered around. We're talking about tiny, secluded villages of maybe 70 to 100 people, just completely swallowed up by ancient forests. The boundary between the natural world and the supernatural, it is incredibly thin here. It's a place where ancient energies are still respected, and honestly, feared.
So, let's set the scene for that fateful afternoon. It was the height of summer, June or July, when that midday mountain sun is just absolutely scorching. Because of the heat, villagers usually rest indoors, and they leave their livestock in what's known locally as a chan, basically a traditional animal shed. The two brothers had gone out to herd their goats. By late afternoon, the goats returned safely to the chan, exactly like they always do, but the boys didn't. Now initially, the village just assumed the brothers had gone down to the river to catch fish with thorn hooks. It's a super common pastime, so at first nobody panicked.
But man, that calm shattered as soon as evening fell. Search parties were organized, and they hadn't even walked 10 minutes from the village when that 15-year-old boy appeared, just covered in blood. After the village healer managed to revive him a few hours later, he could only mumble that something had ambushed them from behind and dragged his older brother into the bushes. Naturally, the search party cautiously went to the exact spot he pointed out, but they didn't find a body. They didn't even find drag marks. All they found were a few crushed, scattered bones.
And the terror escalated at a totally dizzying pace. It didn't stop with the older brother. No, just a month later, a woman and her young child vanished while out cutting grass. Then, a few weeks after that, 3 school kids disappeared right behind their teachers they were walking home. Finally, 2 armed hunters were brought in to kill what the villagers just assumed was a rogue man-eating leopard or tiger. These guys were stationed at a primary school, but by the 3rd day, when the villagers went to check on them, the hunters were gone again. Only pieces of shattered bones remained.
Here's the crucial thing, though. This defied all logic of normal animal behavior. Think about it. Leopards or tigers do not consume adult humans entirely, clothes, weapons, and all, leaving only bone fragments in just a matter of hours. The entire village was absolutely paralyzed with fear. Schools were shut down. Nobody dared step outside. Realizing that rifles and search parties were completely useless, the village pradhan, the headman, and the elders knew they needed a totally different kind of help. So they turned to the local temples, seeking out the priests and oracles who could channel the local deities to find out what in the world was actually hunting them.
What the oracle told them introduced a name that absolutely terrified the older generation. This wasn't a tiger. It was Dantuka. According to the source material, Dantuka is this mythological entity that exists in a really terrifying liminal space. It's not fully a demon, but it's not fully a god either. It's this ancient, dark energy that the ancestors were very much aware of, but the younger generation had totally forgotten about.
Based on the elders who actually remember the old lore, Dantuka is a hulking nightmare. Picture this. It possesses a massive, muscular, buffalo-like body. That gives it the sheer strength to effortlessly crush a human and even tear right through the roofs of traditional homes. But attached to that body is a terrifying, tiger-like face. It's essentially an apex predator of the supernatural realm, completely capable of consuming humans entirely and leaving nothing but crushed bones in its wake.
But why was Dantuka attacking this specific village out of nowhere? Because entities like this don't just wake up one day and decide to start hunting without some kind of catalyst. Well,
The oracle revealed the chilling truth. Dantuka was eating the villagers because someone in the village had actually stolen and eaten the entity's dedicated food. They had taken its bogue. And since the entity was deprived of its rightful offering, it decided to just make the village its new offering.
To really understand why this is such a dangerous misstep, we need to talk about the concept of bogue, which is a spiritual food offering. In these really remote mountain villages, there are ancient practices meant to keep the balance between humans and the unseen world. For instance, if a family cooks non-vegetarian food, they might leave a small bowl outside as bogue. It's basically a way to appease negative energies that might be drawn in by the scent of blood. You can think of it like paying a toll to keep your home safe.
So now, the village Pradhan had a massive problem. He had to find out who triggered this curse. And the breakthrough actually came completely by accident. Right around this time, a local teacher caught 3 young boys sneaking around a chan at night. Turns out, they'd been stealing goats from the village and eating them. The Pradhan brought these kids in for questioning and immediately started connecting the dots. The goat thefts had started exactly when the disappearances began. He pressed them hard, demanding to know if they'd taken anything else recently. And finally, one of the boys broke down and confessed to a colossally foolish mistake.
The sequence of events here was honestly a masterclass in making disastrous decisions. The boys had been fishing near a small, pretty isolated river temple, and they were getting hungry. They spotted a healthy goat tied to a tree nearby. Now, they definitely saw the bright red tilak, that's a sacred mark on its forehead, which clearly meant it was a ritual sacrifice. But arrogantly ignoring the warning, they stole it, took it up into the hills, and ate it. And by doing that, they had stolen the bogue. That specific goat was an offering left by a very sick family to appease Dantuka. By eating it, these boys painted a massive target on their entire village.
What happened next is a pretty stark reminder of the rules of this folklore. The very next day after they confessed to the Pradhan, all 3 of those boys vanished without a single trace. Did they go out to the fields, down to water the crops? Nobody knows. They just simply disappeared. The village finally had the truth, but those 3 boys had become Dantuka's ultimate, tragic victims. The karmic debt of their theft had been brutally collected.
So how do you stop a cycle of terror like that? Well, understanding the grave offense that had been committed, the entire village banded together. They took a new, perfectly healthy goat down to that exact same river temple. Collectively, the villagers begged for forgiveness from the entity, pleading that the ignorance of just a few shouldn't doom all of them. They tied the new goat there as a restored bogue, and when they returned the next morning, the goat was gone. Only bones remained in its place. Dantuka had accepted the offering, and from that day forward, the mysterious disappearances completely stopped.
This whole terrifying incident actually brings us to a much broader cultural lesson that's explored really deeply in the source material. It's the concept of the Kul Delta, or Ish Delta. These are ancestral family deities. We aren't talking about mainstream universal gods here, but rather very specific deities that have been worshipped by a particular family lineage or a specific village for generations. Their main role in these traditions? To act as a spiritual shield, literally protecting the community from negative entities exactly like Dantuka.
And this perfectly illustrates the core theme of an upcoming book by the source's guest. You see, as people migrate away from these ancient Himalayan villages to move to modern cities, they leave their ancestral homes behind. But more crucially, they stop worshipping their Kul Devtas. According to the lore, when that worship stops, the spiritual shield drops. This leaves the ancestral lands and the families themselves totally vulnerable to dark, negative energies. The source actually suggests this might be why sometimes sudden, unexplained tragedies or illnesses strike families, stuff that even modern medicine can't predict or explain. That ancient protective connection has just been severed.
Which brings us to a really provocative question to leave you with today. If these protective energies are deeply tied to our roots, our ancestors, and our forgotten homelands, do you even know who your own Kuldeva is? It's a pretty fascinating reminder that ancient folklore isn't just about jump scares, it's actually a profound commentary on migration and the unseen forces we might be leaving behind. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and as always, keep exploring.